in Weatherford.
It's Andrew Lester and Joe
Andrew
Todd.
M. Lester and
Joe Todd.
Henry Whiteshield and family. And Z. Pels. He said he didn't want in there. Not necessarily, but anyway. Okay. Okay.
We're just holding the towel.
Okay.
Together there.
Thank you. Okay. Right ahead. Henry, in the 1960s, I found out that you had a 48-star flag, which my Uncle Jim Lester, a sheriff in Cheyenne, Oklahoma, had given to your grandfather. I went to see Mrs. Savage, and she took me to your home, and I met your wife and you showed me the flag that my Uncle Jim Lester had given your grandfather, Chief Whiteshield, many years ago. And I told you, you give me a picture of your father, Ben Whiteshield, who was a peace chief, and I will do his bust and bring it back from California when I come back to the University of Oklahoma working on a master's and a PhD. So the following summer I came back. I moved to Oklahoma in 1984. I came and found your house again and met you and your wife. And I brought the bust of your father, Ben Whiteshield, with me. And I mentioned, if you wanted to, let us have a dedication at the Black Kettle Museum in Cheyenne to present this 48-star flag, the symbol of peace and friendship and protection for your Southern Cheyenne ceremonial dances and ceremonies, and the bust of your father to the museum. Well, since this is 1986, and that was almost 2 years ago, at your request, I'm going to make a bust of my Uncle Jim Lester. And now this is a recording for the oral history of Oklahoma. And I think the history of your father, your grandfather, you, and the friendship that existed between Uncle Jim and your grandfather is symbolic, because if it had not been for the American native Indians at Plymouth Rock, the Pilgrims would not have survived the first winter. And perhaps if it had not been for this flag to protect your ceremonies would not have survived in the early days of Oklahoma. Would you tell us about your grandfather? Wasn't he a chief of the Indian Wars prior to reservation?
Yes, Andrew. That's right. It's great to make friendship this way. From Jim Lester, what he did, he gave a 48-star flag. To give it to my grandfather, he told him, this will kindly protect you. Whatever you do, whatever you do, you put up this flag. So there wouldn't be no, might use these words. So some others might throw rocks at you or trying to destroy. When they see this flag, they have respect for the flag. So that's where he got it. So later on, he gave it to my father, and he carried it as long as he lived. Then the father, Ben Whiteshield, gave this flag to me. So I accepted and carried it on to up this time. So it's still, still using it, we still got it, and we're going to turn it in to museum, April 6, 1986. And that's where I got hold of it. Now I'm 81 years old now. And I have been going different schools, two different attendant Indian schools, which is one is the beginning of it was 3 years, Red Moon School at Hammond, near Hammond. Then after that I went to Collin, the Seeker School, they call it Seeker School, Seeker Indian School. Then I went to a Chilocco Indian Agriculture School. Then I came back, then I started working around grandfather. He don't like to see me going to school, keep going to school. He always say that one. So I just listened to him. He was grandfather was a warrior, but he will not tell us more about here, what they have going on.
He didn't tell you about the Indian wars.
No, he didn't.
He wanted to make peace and be friends.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. So I got to start farming before the war.
World War I or II?
II. So I already farmed that time. I had to feed cattle, implement. I started with horses, over time way. So I'm retired now. At this few years back now.
Can you tell me something about Jim Lester, a sheriff, and a friend of his started a butcher shop in Hammond, and I was told the reason they started the butcher shop is because the Indians in early days could kill game on the way to ceremonies and gatherings, and so when they saw a stray cow or a horse or something, to them that was just fair game. And in order to keep peace between the Indians and the white settlers, he started this butcher shop. Do you remember anything about that?
Well, very little.
Blanche, do you remember anything about that?
I'm too young.
Oh, okay. You
Not
don't remember that?
very much. So.
And I guess my cousin told me that he told your father and your grandfather, especially your father, put this star flag on your barn and tie it down with rocks. If you have any trouble with anybody, I'll come by and take care of it when I can see the flag driving by the highway. And that was a very moving, emotional time when you brought that flag out and unfolded it for me to see, because Uncle Jim was my favorite uncle. And I asked him when I was 6 years old, how come they made you sheriff? He said, because I can whoop anybody in the county. What was the name that you gave my Uncle Jim?
Well, grandfather called him in Cheyenne language. That means buckskin jacket. That's what he. I suppose he just start calling him,
Yeah.
not trying to do it.
Yeah, just sort of like a nickname.
Yeah, just call it.
Could you tell me something about the basic origin and use of the peace pipe? It seemed to be used by all the American Indians.
Well, there's two kinds. This red one is, they don't use it just common way. Just when there's in ceremonial way doing, that's when this, the
The
red.
red one is for
red
ceremony.
And this black one is just for any time.
Okay.
Sitting around smoking.
In other words, one's a social and one's a ceremonial.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Can you give me an idea how the Cheyenne felt? Now, in my mind, I see the buffalo as a symbol for survival because the Indians could use every part of the buffalo, and there were so many of them. Did they look at it like the Great Spirit gave them this animal, or what is the meaning of the buffalo for the Indians?
Well, that's what it is. They think it's, might use the word holy.
The buffalo is holy.
Yeah, he's so holy. Powerful.
Yes.
So therefore
And courage and endurance,
Yeah.
all the qualities that were admirable. Okay.
that's right.
Then the black units of cavalry, the 9th and 10th regiments, were called buffalo soldiers. You know how they got that name? Buffalo soldiers.
Well, they call them in our language, Mostari, black, Mostari, that's black soldiers.
Yes. Now, what I heard was that they didn't mistreat the Indians as badly as the white soldiers did, and the hair reminded them of the hump of the buffalo, and they were courageous and sort of their own person. They didn't all dress alike, and you know, they were sort of ragamuffins in a sense, but they maintained peace and security for the Indians.
That's right. All right.
So that's the honor they were given, buffalo soldiers. What is the meaning of a white buffalo? Was that a mystical legend, or was that had spiritual significance?
Yes, that's what they say. We hear about it.
Tell us. I'd like for you to tell me in your own words what it meant to you when you first heard about the white buffalo
Well,
as a boy.
I already said, but that other holy
Holy buffalo.
peace, like peace pie.
Now,
And this white buffalo is more like power has more power.
the white buffalo has more power than a buffalo.
I think that's what the way they talk.
Now, did they ever see a white buffalo? Was there ever a white buffalo?
Well, just the older people, I suppose, but we never saw it.
Yes. There's something, okay. Then the white buffalo was mystical power. Did it have a special omen or a sign that meant something good was going to happen? Or that the Great Spirit was still watching over the people? What?
That I don't hear much about white buffalo, just here and there.
I see.
What already said.
I guess a woman can't tan the hides on white buffalo.
The women cannot tie in. Was it an albino with red eyes or pink eyes, or was it white buffalo with dark eyes? Albino?
Yeah, if it's albino, anyway, they don't want to touch that.
Yes.
Why?
When was the last time a white buffalo was seen by the Indians, do you know?
We never did ask.
Old people talked about it,
Yeah.
but you never knew.
Andy, why couldn't the women touch the?
Tell us why the women could not touch the white buffalo.
Well, it's mystical and since Indian man they take it as a holy animal. It's just maybe for demand, I guess. I don't
And
know.
certain men could, only certain men.
Certain
Yeah.
men.
Do you have anything you want to add, see, on this? Okay. Do you remember your grandfather? Do you remember your grandfather? Yes, but before he passed on, what do you remember about him? What were some of the things that people told you about him that made him a good and great chief?
Yes, sir. He always, that's what he said. You know, ever since he was a young man, he become a chief. They always like about what he's doing. And he always say every 10 years there will be replacement. Take this off, take that one off, replace this one. But he never once was replaced.
Now, why was he chosen chief?
Well,
The tribe chose him, didn't they?
yes,
Because of his wisdom, common sense,
kind to people,
kind to people.
help people,
Yeah.
all things like that. And one thing about this is, he's the one of the 7 chiefs. There were 7 chiefs, 2,
Up to him,
yeah,
up to his
yeah,
name.
with him.
Yes. 7
He
chiefs
was-
along with him.
Yeah, along with him.
Yes.
He was one of them that opposed to sell this whole reservation,
I see.
keep the others out. It's time to,
Now
but he
you-
couldn't do it, so he surrendered.
Yes. Now you Southern Cheyenne were different than the Northern Cheyenne, weren't you? The Northern Cheyenne were a different group of Cheyenne. And you were the Southern Cheyenne.
Southern Cheyenne.
Yes. Now, your grandfather knew there were too many people coming in, so he wanted to keep the land, have peace, and security for his people, didn't he?
Right.
And I don't think the Northern Cheyenne wanted peace. They wanted to keep fighting.
No, they
No,
were friends.
Were they the same as the Southern Cheyenne in that regard?
Yes, but
Okay,
same,
okay.
same.
Andy, what's the difference between the two?
What is the basic difference between the Northern Cheyenne and the Southern Cheyenne? Basic difference. It seems to me right now they're more similar than different.
They just a little bit different. Anytime I am in the ocean,
it's in the way of religion.
Religion more than anything. I see. I see.
And we talk the same, we understand each other, but they
same.
talk a little bit
The
different.
dialect is a little
Yeah,
different.
little bit different.
Sort of like the northeastern people in Boston and Okies, or the drawls of the Southwest. Okay.
That's what it is.
You remember your father very well. Was your father a great deal like his father?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They're almost alike, weren't they?
Grandfather had a village right north of town, Hammond. All his relatives there.
Teepees.
Yeah,
They still live in,
yeah.
you know, in 1920s, I came from Oklahoma City to Shamrock, Texas, and when I passed the Canadian River, I saw a group of people there living in teepees. That must have been the Cheyenne. I was 4 years old. I still remember that.
My father was in Indian police for many years. Till later he moved on to farm.
Was he hired by the government to be a
Yes.
policeman? I see. And then he was a chief too. When did he become peace chief?
1935.
1935. And he was a lawman before then.
Yeah.
So that made him and Uncle Jim, the sheriff, real close, didn't it?
Right.
Uncle Jim must have been sort of having the heart and the mind of an Indian.
Oh, yeah.
He felt like the
Yeah.
people ought to live in peace, and
Yeah.
he didn't want any trouble, just like your father and grandfather.
Right.
How many chiefs are in your tribe right now that you know of? Is Lawrence a chief?
Yes.
Lawrence
Yeah.
Hart? How is he kin to you?
He's nephew.
Nephew. Okay. How many children have you had, you and Blanche? 5. I should have introduced you to this tape. You are Henry Whiteshield, and this is your wife, Blanche Whiteshield. And your daughter, Marcy. Is that right? Okay. You live in this town? You've heard a lot of things. I'll bet you have some things you'd like to say. Would you have any comments on anything your father has told us? Do you remember your grandfather, his father?
Yes. Up until, let's see, I moved away from Hammond in 1952. I went to a boarding school, Washita.
Yes.
And from there I joined service.
The Navy? Okay. Let me ask you about Chilocco. I heard that when children went there, that the Plains Indians and the 5 civilized tribes had problems because they didn't like to think that those Indians were more civilized than they were. Is that right?
I don't know.
And my wife and my brother-in-law went to Chilocco. And they told me when they walked in on the waxed hallway that they almost had to take their shoes off so they wouldn't make marks on the. That's ridiculous.
That's right.
And they couldn't set their suitcase down and make a mark, or they'd be on their hands and knees putting wax on and polishing it again. And that's where my brother-in-law learned to fight so good. And he was a Golden Gloves champion in 1940, 140 pounds. His name was Ejo Hargitay, Little Happy Deer. They were Creek Indians, Trail of Tears survivors.
What was the last name?
His name was Deer, D-E-E-R, but his Indian name was Ejo Hargitay, Little Frisky Deer. And they were the Beaver clan. In the Cheyenne, are there clans that they inherit from the mother or the father, like in the Creek Indians? See, the Indians in the Creek, they inherit their mother's clan, and their mother was a Beaver clan, so that made them a Beaver clan. You don't know about that?
Not really.
Okay. Okay. When you were a little boy, how old were you when your father made the war bonnet and gave it to you?
Oh, it's been,
1930.
yeah, 1940,
No, 30.
1930.
Okay. How old were you?
Yeah, my 25. Yeah, it was about 25 years old.
We might not count this right.
Well, okay. Well, you know, I always felt like when I read the history of the Indians, I always identified with them. I always felt like I was Indian, and I made a buffalo ghost print. And when I was a kid in high school, I carved a buffalo out of sandstone with a pocket knife while I was a Boy Scout. And I feel like I've known you all my life.
Yeah.
And I would like to show the war bonnet that Henry gave to me, that his father made and gave to him. And this was an honor that I just could not experience without deep, deep, deep feelings. Now, Henry, this is the bonnet that you gave me the other day. You called me and said, meet me in Clinton, and I didn't know what was going to happen, and you gave me this bonnet. And it was more than I could handle. This is a treasure. This is worth more than any kind of money. This is the highest honor you could pay me. And I was always so willing to give you anything I could that I did that represented the Indians, but I didn't expect anything back from you. And this was a beautiful honor that you paid me. And I want you to know that I cannot keep this war bonnet in my family. I must pass it on. And so I wanted to remain forever with the bust I did of your father, and Uncle Jim, the ceremonial peace pipe, and the blanket. No, you told me to keep the blanket, didn't you? The busts that are going to be covered with the blanket, you told me to be sure and keep that. Okay, I'll keep that. But the peace pipe and the 48 star flag and the 2 portraits and this war bonnet will be in the Black Kettle Museum. And is this for me too?
No, show.
Just to show. Okay. That's him in the war bonnet. Okay. Well, I want you to know that my son is a great-grandson of the 89ers. Uncle Jim was an 89er son. I am a grandson 89er. And I am the great-great-grandson of David Crockett, who fought the President of the United States on not moving Indians to Oklahoma. And my son became the U.S. Commissioner for Native American Indians under the last 4 presidents. And he will be here for the dedication. Okay? And I've shown this to the boys at my church, and they want to be the color guard in this dedication. Okay? Now, do you have anything you want to say about the dedication itself? And about putting it in the Black Kettle Museum, where the 89er pioneers and the Southern Cheyenne ancestry, heritage, and culture is being held together, like the red and white stars on our red and white stripes on our flag that flow forever in the breeze, that shows that through 5 generations the Lester and the Knife Chief family have been friends. Okay? And all of these treasured items will be on display forever at the Black Kettle Museum to show that peace and friendship has existed between our families. And you made a statement that I'd like to have you make again if you want to, but I'd like to say this. One of the things that represent to me the friendship of your grandfather and my Uncle Jim is, it's much better to bury our grievances and write them in the sands and engrave our blessings in eternal marble. And with this ceremony and dedication, it's going to show that the memories are more bearable when there's love, friendship, and forgiveness. And when we met at the museum on November the 27th, we emphasized to them, if it had not been for the Indians helping the Pilgrims, they could not have survived. If it had not been for my uncle, perhaps your ceremonies could not have survived. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, it's still waving. I just like to say this. All, maybe most of the children don't understand and can't talk our language. Each tribe, I guess it's that way all over. So just here and there, like you all, we're still using our Cheyenne language. And I'm glad we do. We use it, and I even want to say, this is good. Let's pivot. Good. Thank you. I hope.
You know, the last verse in my prose that's going to be read at the dedication goes like this. Jehovah, Creator, Redeemer of all living. At Easter dawn, for the Southern Cheyenne, the center of being is the Great Spirit. And it's all in the same Great Spirit, Great Creator. We call it by different names, but it's all the same. I'm sure happy and proud to be your friend. It's one of the best things that's happened to me. And this is one reason why I knew I had to come to Oklahoma for the 89er celebration. Okay? Good. Blanche, bless your heart. Thank you so much. Marcy, I'm happy that I met you. Okay. Now, you see, Henry, you did real well, bless your heart. Okay.
Sir, where were you born?
Right by that, in Oklahoma, right by that, where they had first school there, Ratmon School, right east there. My father had lived there. He was on the duty, police, Indian police. I was just little at that time. Right there.
Can you tell us some of the stories about your father when he was an Indian policeman? And you can use your own language if you want.
Well, he got orders what to do. He go out when there's some school children trying to escape, go home. Then he got orders to go back, see them, talk to him, bring him back in a good way, back into school to learn. And also he tells us that he deliver messages, some emergencies during the night, no matter what, snow, rain, dark, he goes out to maybe White Home over there, another one over there. That's what he was doing. And he helps around that, build that school. There's tribal land all around there.
Was your home, where you were born, is that near Hammond?
Yes, yes.
How far from Hammond?
Oh, but mile and a half or over or less.
Blanche, where were you born?
Same place?
You've known him all your life?
Yeah.
You've known Henry all your life? Did you get married like people do today with a minister, or how did you marry in those old days?
Yes, we married
In the
our
church?
pastor's home, yes.
Uh-huh.
J.B. Edgar.
Uh-huh. In the old days, how did the young couples get married in the Cheyenne?
Well, if they...
Did your father or grandfather tell you about that?
Yeah, they used to take courses to get that girl for their son. That's what,
How many
my
horses?
mother used. Many horses. If you're wealthy, you give more horses for that girl.
She had to be willing, though.
My mother, yeah, did.
And did he court her? How did he court her? Did he play a flute or something?
Yeah, some of them do. Yeah, not all of them. Just some of that can play.
Ma'am, who is your father?
John P. Hart. He was one of the chiefs.
You said the Cheyenne have 7 chiefs?
No,
No more. But
Yeah,
these 7 were opposed, not 7, this whole reservation. They kind of split the...
What are the different chiefs? What does these chiefs do?
big chiefs. They were big chiefs.
Is there a main chief and sub-chiefs?
Yes, yes.
They were picked for leadership and certain qualities.
Oh, yeah.
Did they have the same duties over the same group of people?
What are the duties of the chief?
Peace, people are the duties in here? What the city or here?
Well, it's trying to help people look after, trying to improve, look around what it is, try to help that one, this one, all that, in the right way.
Especially poor people. They take care of poor people.
Can you remember any of the Indian medicines that your people have used?
No, no, no. Yes, there was some. We call them medicine men. They're individual.
They were Indian doctors.
You have a medicine man today?
No.
No more.
Does anyone still practice with the Indian medicines?
We don't know, but those go out of states, we don't know if they still do. It's not like it used to be.
Can you tell us some of the old traditional ways that your parents and grandparents followed that you no longer use? Like you said, like the wedding, they used to give horses for the woman.
Yeah, they used to trade for a girl, but those, they rather, most of them rather elope. Then they treat that girl, this boy's home. They treat her real nice. They accept her as their very own, and they give her presents. Later on, they take stuff and horse the same way to her relatives, parents.
I would like to ask a question about ceremonies in which you give people certain names. You know, like when you adopt somebody. How does that take place? Or what happens?
Anything way next to me.
Well, there's certain ones, just in their way, they perform somehow, some way, they're talking to, I don't know.
It seems to me that sometimes a nickname is given someone and it sticks, and that's an honorary kind of a name. It's paying them honor. Then there's a ceremonial way of adopting someone, a ceremony, okay? Now, would you like to talk about a minute about the destruction of Black Kettle Camp? Now, when he came there and destroyed over 300 horses, that was quite a lot of wealth that was destroyed by George Custer. And was that an army unit, or was there a local militia there involved with that you know about?
My grandfather don't talk about that much. He come from the west one night, somewhere way back in the mountains. He come through there. He stopped by there. That before it happened. He stopped by a visit that Black Kettle Camp. He was just a young man. And they want him to stay there that night. No, he said, I'm going over to the other camp over there. So he went on, and he don't know much about it. So he don't tell me about that. And
No.
he can tell you some more about that.
Blanche, would you like to elaborate on that?
Well, my grandmother's sister, that was Black Kettle's wife. She got killed. My aunt raised of my aunties, we call her Shining Star, an Indian name, and I'm named after her. And she just died 1930s. All her parents got lost. And she was the only. Her and her sister were running into a big bush. There was snow. They crawled under that bush. That's how come they got saved. She was sister and her sister too. They escaped from there. And my father's mother, she raised both of the girls. And I know her well.
What were their names?
The oldest one, I have to forget her name. Her is Shining Star. It's the one. Or Twinkling Star, I don't know which.
Excuse me, go ahead.
Well, go ahead.
Another thing I heard in the 1960s was that there were some young Indians that either escaped that camp or that lived somewhere else and knew about that camp, and they made a vow that they were going to keep in touch with where General Custer and his cavalry were, and that helped lead to his downfall in Montana at the Little Bighorn. Do you know anything about that?
Never
Do
heard.
you know anything about that? That they vowed that they would get him.
Oh, yes. You mean when that Custer came to visit Black Cattle?
Yeah, when he came to and made battle with and destroyed the Black Kettle camp, there were some young Southern Cheyenne Indians who said, "We will see that he gets what's coming to him." And so they kept the Indians informed, and so that's why there were so many Indians around Custer. There were more than one tribe that fought him at Little Bighorn. And they all disbanded, and some of them went to Canada right after that.
Oh, I see.
Do you have any
No.
information about that?
No, I don't.
Do you have any other stories about the battle of there at Black Kettle's village that you've been told?
Let's see. Yeah, my grandfather, he was camping at the where Strong City is. There was another village. There was.
How far is that?
It's about 10, no, maybe 5 or 6 miles. And there was Kiowas and Rappole Camp and Cheyenne. They were together. When they heard the news, they all went up there. And there's a hill. They were standing, watching from there what was going on at the Black Kettle's camp. And they were preparing to drive these soldiers off. And there was some bunch went to rest. That was a Hamilton bunch, Captain Hamilton, I guess. And they surrounded them. I guess my grandfather was in there too, and these other tribes, Rapos and Kiowas. And they surrounded them, and all they were doing, those soldiers just keep popping up their what you call them, those guns, whatever. They didn't know what to do. They say that weeds were real tall. They trying to hide around there, and they destroyed them all. And my grandfather went up and looked for his sister-in-law, Mrs. Black Kettle. He found them at the ditch along the creek. He found them. they were dead. And they buried them along there somewhere along the creek.
How big was the village?
Oh, it was just small village, just one man's family village was Black Kettle. One man's family's village is his relatives, like sisters and brothers and the children and sons and daughters. Just they set up teepees with their daughters that looks like a big camping, but it wasn't that many people. There weren't that many people. There are so many teepees there.
I
Just
think
like today, you see so many cars, but not enough people.
How many were killed at the battle?
They didn't say. They didn't know. We didn't know. They never did tell us. When we asked them, like my aunt, to tell us about that, they say, "Oh, no use to talk about it. Let's forget it." They tell us.
How many survived the battle? Do you know?
Oh, just a very few. They tell us, I might say less than 100. Less than 100.
I think on the battlefield it said 97 women and children were
Yeah.
taken.
Yeah, and most of their sons got killed since they right in the midst.
When you were talking a while ago and said that your father went around to get the children to go back to school, most of these children did not really want to go to an agency school, did they?
No, no.
And most of the agency schools now are either burned down or just rotted away or closed down, aren't they? Chilocco is closed down.
Well, this rat movement was down, not long, still on it, go. Was down. The building was still down.
Sir, where did you go to school?
Where did you go to school?
I went to that rat moon school, and I went to puppet school for a while, about a year, and then I went on to Colony, Oklahoma, Indian school,
Was Mr. Seeger down there?
Seeker school.
Was he there?
Yeah, he was there, Seeker Indian school.
What kind of man was John Seeger?
Well, he was nice. We thought he was nice, good to students, help them. You know how they go about that. Treat us good, talk to us good.
How many students were at Seeger?
How many students?
Oh, I really exact, I don't know. Quite a few. Those who just started,
Is it less than 100?
but 100, a little over, more.
Was it a boarding school?
Boarding school, yes.
What were your chores at the school?
Well, I'm more interested in animals. Dairy, milk. Same way with Shalaka. Never choose inside work.
Did they let you do what you liked? In other words, if you'd rather plant and do that, they'd let you do that. If you'd rather be a machinist or mechanic, they'd let you learn that.
Oh yeah.
They'd let you have a choice.
Yeah. That's the way it was over at Shalaka.
Did you work in the fields at Seeger?
I go out and take care of what the calves are.
Okay.
Then come back and take care of it inside. And help milk.
Did you raise all your own food at the school?
At the school, they used to know your food.
I think so, yes. Yes.
What were the duties of the women the girls that went to school there?
Well, they had big washing outfit going on. Help around there, change clothes, put some more clothes, hang them out, get to hang them out. Yeah, women work. That's what. Well, of course, boys help too.
Did you live in the dormitory?
Yes, dormitory.
How many boys lived in the dormitory?
I think all of the boys that went to school.
Was it one big open room, or did you have?
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you have to wear a uniform?
No, not here, not in the Collins. But over there we do.
At Red Moon?
No, Shalako.
Shalako. What about at Red Moon?
Just teaching day, go to school, do just the little things around our yard inside, help clean the building.
Who was the head of Red Moon?
Well, at that time I know when I went to school was Willis E. Dunn. Willis E. Dunn.
When did you go to Red Moon? What year?
Gosh, I can't remember. I didn't. I was just a young man, just a coming young man.
You was born 1905.
5.
When is your birthday?
September 8th, 1905.
Ma'am, may I ask when your birthday is?
October 10th, 1914.
Sir, who is your mother?
My mother was, her English name was Annie Reynolds. She married to my father, John P. Hart, so she's Mrs. John P. Hart, and her Indian office name was Cornstalk.
Sir, what was your mother's name?
Mary Victor Whiteshield.
Do the Cheyenne have a naming ceremony for the children?
No, not that. Just the parents. Name after somebody already living.
And it's got to be on the man's side, a baby named after father's side.
So the Cheyenne take the father's side of the family. I'm trying to think. Do you have any questions?
Can you tell me, are we going to have a ceremony at the battlefield before the dedication at 3 o'clock on the 6th of April to adopt me at that battlefield site? And you have given me the name White Buffalo, which is the highest honor you can give me.
Well, it would be all right if everything works right. Right, the weather, not there, battlefield.
But
What you mentioned about that battlefield.
But any time is all right, so you'll let me know before the
Yes.
dedication. Okay. Would you like to ask how she senses the difference now from the time she was born, from the time they were born, as different from his grandfather's day? Because I sense assimilation and integration, and my brother-in-law, when he went to California, had a driver's license that said white, and those police would beat him up because they thought he was Mexican trying to claim to be white. And they talked Spanish to him and he couldn't understand them. And in Oklahoma, Indians are called white on their driver's license and legal documents. And I kind of feel that from the very first day in Oklahoma, that there's some people in positions of authority and power that looked upon the white man as their red brother. Just like the Indians looked upon the first whites they saw as white brother. And you mentioned it's a state of mind as much as blood that makes a person white or Indian. Because I look at whites as doers. They go out and do and they tear up a lot of things and ruin a lot of things by doing more than they think. An Indian sits down, makes up his mind what he does, and then he goes ahead and does it. My father-in-law said, white people think Indians are lazy when they sit, but they're resting from their work or thinking about what they're going to do. They're not lazy. They're not loafing. They're resting from their work and planning. Is that the way you feel about sitting around thinking? It's a good way.
But most of white people are here that Indians, whatever they do, they really skilled. They do skilled work.
Yes. You know, at the government schools, this is what I've heard. These women are amazed, and men that teach there. The kids will see this wall. They'll look at that wall. They won't even make a sketch and make a lot of squares and divide it up like a white kid will do it. They just get up there and start painting, and it fits. And it balances. There's a good composition. They just sense it inside of themselves, that there's space there to fill up.
I think it's information on the language.
Okay.
Is Cheyenne a written language? Has it ever been written down?
No, not that I know. You mean now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Nowadays.
What about in the old days? It wasn't so.
What is written down now in Cheyenne language?
Well, it's just like you got dictionary. I've got Cheyenne dictionary. I still got we still got big dictionary written by Rudolph Petter. It's Cheyenne Mennonite Church. It's big one. We got it from
How many letters in the Cheyenne alphabet, or is it? Does the Cheyenne have a structured alphabet?
Do you sound it out alphabetically? Do you phonetically sound out the words?
Is it more like the Cherokee syllabary as opposed to a white alphabet?
The Cheyenne, does it go by different sounds as opposed to different letters?
It's kind of like the English. You sound your vowels, phonics. That's how they write it.
Did you sing lullabies in Cheyenne to your children? What kind of lullabies did you sing to your children?
Oh, some of them put words in them, but all I know I hear is when they sing songs. That's all I know. My father used to sing songs.
Would you sing some of them for us?
No, I can't. But some women, when they want to put their babies to sleep, all they saying is just like, "Mom, oh," that's all they can. Over again.
Let me tell you what the grandmother of my children sang. Baby, no just, baby, no just. I said, where did you do that? How did that come into being? She said, when we went on the Trail of Tears, when the bugler would blow on his bugle at night, the mothers would pick up the same tune to sing to their babies. When the babies heard that, they wouldn't wake them up. They would still go to sleep. And so they still do that. And you see, nojas is a Mexican or Spanish word and then English and Spanish with the tune
Yeah.
of the taps.
Yeah. My mother used to do, just she holds baby, she just sing. So she
I
says.
see. Well, how did you do it? You don't remember.
Maybe it's a family secret.
Okay. Okay. What kind of a ceremony did the men or women have at the birth of a baby in the Cheyenne?
Ceremony.
Yes. Or the death of someone. What kind of, did you talk about happy hunting ground? Like the white man book says, Indians go to a happy hunting ground? Tell us about the birth and the passing away of people.
Some of them they giving feasts. They just did dinner to people whoever comes to see baby.
Uh-huh. Okay. Tell me about giveaways. The Indians have a tradition of giveaways. Was that war bonnet a form of a giveaway?
It's just honoring. You honor your
Yes.
friend.
Uh-huh.
You just give your horse to your friend.
Yes,
And he'll do it the same thing to you later on.
yes.
He honors you.
Well, you see, the skills I have, I give to you. And the skills and things you have, you give to me. So, in a sense, my heart is Indian, right? When you met me, you could feel that I loved Indians, and there's no problem in terms of prejudice, couldn't you? And I could feel that you loved whites who understood you. And I'm grateful for it. And when I met you 20 years later, you didn't treat me like it was 20 years ago. You treated me like I was there yesterday with the bus. I hadn't seen you in 20 years. Okay. Are there any other questions?
They might be
Hey,
getting
would
a
you-
little tired.
Do you have, getting tired?
No.
Whenever two Cheyennes meet, how do you greet each other?
You mean in the words?
Yeah.
Well, I still use it when I pass somebody, not stop, just pass somebody. I say, go on. And sometimes I stop and shake hands with them. Feel it. Good.
I know, of course it is gonna come in. Of course it can.
I hear you use the word aho.
Of course, it's kind of a word.
That's what I was thinking. That's where I've heard that before. Aho.
Of course.
Isn't that a greeting?
Yeah, that's great. Of course.
Ma'am, what is your Cheyenne name?
Brave woman. I know how to store. It's in the honey. I've got 3 names. When I was a baby, they called me Brave woman. It's in the honey. And later on, I'm named after sticker bush. My father was saying that you're named after peyote garden.
Huh?
And my mother gave me that name after my aunt. Twinkling star or shining star. I know how to store. Got 3 Indian names.
I think that's not right. maybe sometime we'd like to sit down and talk again.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I'm sure I'll think of some more questions. If that'll be okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.